It was a difficult day, as always at the end of the month. Everyone suddenly remembered that they had missed their assignments, and now, on the last day, they were frantically trying to catch up. The pressure to meet the deadlines was exhausting. By the time we finally managed to finish everything, everyone was ready for a break. The idea of going out for a drink was met with enthusiasm, and we went to a cafe where we sat for a few hours. Conversation flowed easily and laughter echoed throughout the establishment as we shared stories and joked about the craziness of the day. We talked about everything, work, life, dreams, as if trying to prolong the sense of camaraderie. Before we knew it, it was getting late and the clock was telling us it was time to head home. But my buddies kept urging me to stay a little longer. I hesitated but eventually gave in and we ordered another round each. Eventually, when I finally made it home, I was already tipsy, to say the least. As I approached the door, I remembered that my wife, Isabella, had spent the night at her cousin's house helping with some family business. I didn't ask for details, but was glad to know she wasn't home. She wouldn't have been happy to see me like this. I fumbled with the keys for a long time, my fingers feeling awkward, but finally I managed to unlock the door. On the threshold of the apartment, I noticed a woman's shoe. For a moment, I wondered if Isabella had returned early, but the shoe didn't look familiar. It was a dainty black heel that I certainly didn't recognize. The lights in the living room flickered as if someone was watching television. Slowly taking off my shoes, I walked to the threshold of the living room. What I saw was unexpected. For a second, I thought I was imagining things, but no, it was real. My mother-in-law, Vanessa, was sitting on the couch in front of the TV. She must have heard a rustle because she turned her head and said, "I thought you weren't coming home tonight." That's what I told my daughter. I frowned and replied, "Why do you always talk about me? I was just out with my coworkers, relaxing a little, and you act like I'm always doing something wrong." Vanessa was silent, either agreeing with my explanation or just deciding not to argue. I stood for a moment, then walked over and sat next to her on the couch. We were watching a movie that was on TV, though I wasn't particularly interested in it. It was some old romantic drama, and the scene seemed to stretch on endlessly. I could feel the awkwardness hanging in the air, and we both didn't know what to say. The moment of the kiss came, and I looked at Vanessa. Her face was slightly flush, and I couldn't help but notice that even for her age, she was still an attractive woman. There was a certain elegance in the way she held herself, in the delicate features of her face. I thought of the bottle of wine I had been saving for a special occasion. It seemed like the perfect time. I stood up, took the bottle, and poured each of us a glass. Vanessa looked at me disapprovingly at first, but then she accepted the wine and took a sip, which I thought relaxed her a little. The tension between us began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of familiarity. "You're very pretty," I told her, and she blushed. She looked away for a moment, her lips curving into a shy smile. I moved closer, feeling the warmth emanating from her body. She didn't pull away, she stayed put. That was all I needed. I put my hand on her thigh, feeling the softness of her robe, and she didn't resist. In that moment, everything else didn't matter. It was just the two of us, lost in a moment we hadn't expected. We sat like that for a while, the movie forgotten, wine glasses standing half empty on the table. I could feel my heart pounding, each beat echoing in my ears. Vanessa looked at me, her eyes searching mine, as if trying to decide what to do next. Slowly, she leaned over and touched my cheek hesitantly at first, then more and more confidently. I could smell the wine on her hand, feel the warmth of her breath. It was intoxicating, more so than any drink I'd had that evening. We pulled away from each other for a moment, both of us breathing heavily. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes, the conflict. "Are you sure about this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Vanessa hesitated, then nodded, her expression softening. She placed her hand on my cheek and ran her thumb over my skin. There was such tenderness in her touch that it made my chest ache. We moved toward each other again, our bodies pressed against each other, and I felt a rush of emotions, warmth, fear, desire for adventure. All of them blended into a heady mixture. There was no turning back now, no doubts. At that moment, we were just the two of us, giving ourselves to what we both wanted but didn't expect. The world outside the window seemed to dissolve. leaving only the warmth of her body, the softness of her touch, and the quiet intimacy of the room. The night dragged on, each minute replaced by another, and we lost ourselves in each other, in the connection that neither of us had expected, but that we both needed. Time seemed to stop, and for those few hours, nothing existed but the two of us.